Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity Podcast, episode 236. And today is the 7th of March, if you're listening on the day of release. So we've got the first 2 months of 2025 done and dusted. It's the 7th of March. And today we thought it would be a good opportunity for Pete and I to catch up properly, because there's been quite a lot going on. We'll say hello to Pete now. How are you, Pete?
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Who should be just here?
Shooting stars, yeah. So Pete is just said hello to Pete. Obviously, the two of us are going to catch up because we were just working out that the last 9 episodes that we've had, so the last 9 weeks, we've had guests all the way from the start of 2025 to now. We've had guests on, so we have not done just an episode, the two of us sort of catching up, since the kind of the Christmas specials that we did, obviously at the end of last year. So just as a recap, the last 9 weeks that we've had, I'm going to do my pick of the pops or my smashy and nicey now. But last week, well, no, I'll work forwards from where we started. So right at the start of the year, episode 227 was with Dr. Ryan Wolfhurt, which was about the spine health. And then we had a double episode with Paul McElroy, 228 and 229, all about perpetual strength in his new book. We had episode 230 with Nick Rainbird, who was talking about his Wim Hof training in Poland. We had episode 231 with Laura Shanks, talking about high rocks and her training for high rocks and her kind of success and what she's working towards this year with that. Episode 232 was with Sean Cole from Portsmouth, all about his gym and then the contrast therapy, the Balance Wellness Club that he has, and giving up alcohol as well, and kind of the effect that that's had on him. Episode 233 was Chloe Brennan, talking about her kind of life as one of the strongest women in the world, and the world's strongest woman under 73 kilos. And the last 2 weeks, episode 234 and 235, have been Pavel Macek, who was talking all about strong first, body weight training, his Enter the Dumbbell workshop, along with stoicism, philosophy, meditation, and loads of stuff about his life in general. So we've had 9 really good weeks with guests, and today we thought we'd catch up with each other, maybe touch on some of the things we've learnt from the last 9 weeks, and also talk about some other things that have been going on with us as well. So Pete, I suppose what would be good to kick off maybe is you, while I was away last week skiing, snowboarding with my annual kind of unique results ski snowboard trip, you delivered a talk with Mr. Ben Morris, wasn't it?
Friend of the show, yeah.
Friend of the show, Ben Morris. Maybe, I mean, I've seen some bits on social media and some clips and things, and it looked great, looked really, really good. Do you want to maybe refresh the listener's memory as to what this was, what the event was, and kind of what the talk was about? Because I think it's really interesting, and we'll touch on this as well. We're going to maybe talk a bit later about the Pavel Tsatsulin's recent appearance on the Huberman Lab podcast, and the bit that I've just listened to where they say, "Oh, walking seems to be it's the new fashionable thing to do. Walking, everyone's talking."
Do you know?
Walking.
I got to that bit and I was like, "You bastard!" Huberman's like, "Oh, 2025 is all about walking." I was like, "I've been doing it for 1.5 years, mate."
I've been walking for like 48 years or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that made me laugh when they said, "Oh, walking's the next big thing, isn't it? Everyone's talking about walking."
And then they laugh about it, and I'm like, "Whoa, steady on."
Yeah, so maybe, how did this come about? Who were you talking to? And kind of what did you talk about? Because like I say, the clips I've seen look great. So yeah, what was it?
Well, it was actually it was the Bath it was Rebalance Bath. So there's a festival every year called Rebalance. And there's Bath Bid as well, which is like a business like conglomerate thing, a business thing in Bath. I don't know exactly what it is because I got invited because Ben works for a local solicitor in HR, and he invited me along. He said, "Oh, they want me." So there's a guy in marketing there, and it was like, "Well, let's do a talk at the Rebalance Festival because Ben knows about movement and all that sort of stuff." and he knows, like, all the kind of neurology behind it and all of that as well, and how it helps you perform better in sport and at work and all these sorts of things. So he's helping solicitors obviously with all of that. So part of the Rebalance Festival, which is all like lots and lots of events going on around the city of like yoga and like nighttime walks. There was dancing under the sun or something, which is at the assembly rooms. They've got like this big sun inside, right? It's like like an exhibit, and like lots of people with glow sticks dancing around underneath that and stuff like that. So all these sorts of things going on all over the city, right? And it's really good. I love stuff like this. However, it only happens for like a week or 2 weeks, and then it ends, right? And my talk was part of that. And it was because, like I say, Ben invited me along, so I'm like grateful to him for that, because it's the first time I've kind of ever done that. But it was really interesting because I started to think about it, and I was like, what am I going to talk about? And then it was like, well, I'll just talk about Walk Bath, Walk in Solves, and then basically it's just stories of the people who've been through, because we've been doing it for like over a year and a half now, and there's like 100 and I don't know what 30 odd people who've been through, and there's just so many stories from it. So it was basically telling people a little bit about who we are, what we do, the kind of thing of like, you never do the same walk twice, especially when you go out with a group of us. There's always different people, there's different sights, sounds, smells, all of those sorts of things, right? You can do the same route, but it doesn't look the same. It doesn't look the same in autumn. It doesn't look the same in summer. It could be cloudy, it could be raining, it could be sunny. All of those things. You feel different on different days as well. But the common thread is kind of people kick their asses out of bed, come and do the walk, and then they feel better for it every time. So it was a bit about that, and then just kind of like some stories about it. I've got a story that I'll tell you in a second, actually. But there's and then it was about that, and then just the 3 takeaways, which we spoke about before. And this is why the whole like kind of festivals like this are great. We spoke about this a while ago, didn't we? Or did we speak about? I've been speaking about this to a lot of people, so I don't know if we spoke about it on here. But kind of how you'll have like mental health awareness week, and people will do things at work for a week to be aware of your mental health. It's like, yeah, but what about the rest of the time? And
well, I think we spoke, didn't we? Like maybe even fairly recent. It would have been towards the start of January, when it was meant to be that Blue Monday.
Blue Monday, yeah.
And then and then I said that the lady came into the gym and said, "Oh, we had a special thing today because it was Blue Monday or whatever, whereby they were encouraging people to go and talk about how they feel and talk to each other." And you're like, well, one day,
yeah.
Like,
this was the thing. So I'll go into this then, and then I'll go back to what I was saying, because I didn't actually include this. I forgot to include it in the talk, because the way I did it, I just had a bunch of slides. One of them had a picture of Crocodile Dundee on it. The famous Australian philosopher Michael J. Crocodile Dundee. But so I just put them up and thought, well, I'll see how the room feels, and I'll decide where I'm going to go with it. So I forgot this, but one of the guys who I help out with like mindset stuff, I say mindset, that's for want of a better word, mindset stuff. But we were talking about this, and he said for Mental Health Awareness Week where he works, somebody asked him, one of the HR people asked him about, his mental health and stuff. And they said like, how often, how often are you aware for it, or what you're going to do for Mental Health Awareness Week? And he goes, I'm aware of my mental health every day. Like, it's as simple as that. Because he works on it, right? And they were kind of like, oh, okay. So we had this quick conversation, me and him, and it was basically 37 and a half hours a week is pretty much what most people are contracted to work on. And nobody does that, but that's kind of what has to be like projected, right? But nobody does that. Everyone works more than that, really, don't they? And so that's 37 and a half hours in the week, in that 1 week of the year. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Everyone should, it's a good thing to do, but doing it for a week doesn't solve anything, right? It just makes people aware for a bit. Everyone ticks a box and then it's done. And you're not going to do 37 and a half hours anyway, because you've got a job to do. So it's going to be a little bit. Whereas if you take the average, 365 days in the year, take off weekends, that's 104. So you've got 261. Take off 25 days, holiday, right? And then do 15 minutes a day, or just on work days, and you've got 58 hours. dedicated to mental health, right? And that could be walking, meditation, counting your breaths, breathing exercises, a bit of yoga, stretching, reading, whatever it is. It doesn't matter, right? Whatever your practice wants to be, whatever calms you down, whatever makes you aware of what's going on in your head. And so that's 58 hours. And then the next bit would have been like, and if you go for a 2-hour walk with us at Walk and Solves, which when it goes around the country, everyone will be able to do this. Do that on a Saturday, and you only make half of those in the year. That's 26. So it's 52, another 52 hours. That's 110 hours. So you're getting towards, that's 4 days and 14 hours or something. Like dedicate, like full 4 days and 14 hours on your mental health in 1 year. Not
Out of
taking
the
it,
365.
not taking into account weekends and holiday and 25 days holiday. So you're already on, and it, which is way more than 37 and a half. And in that 37 and a half hours, you're going to do like what? 10 minutes when someone asks you about it from HR and then doesn't come back because they go, right, we've asked you, so we don't have to ask you for the rest of the week. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a very simple calculation. And then, so the end of the presentation was kind of like basically, you know, make the process, we've said it before, make the process the thing and not the goal, because you might never reach the goal, but at least you follow the process. And then it was be consistent with that process. So pick something that you can be consistent with. And we talk, you know, lots of people talk about doing things that make you uncomfortable, right? That's great, but I think that comes a bit later. Nothing grows in the comfort zone and all this sort of stuff. It's like, yeah, but that comes later. You've got to get used to just doing something new first, which probably will be uncomfortable. But also, if you do something that you don't like doing, then you're going to give up after a month, which most people do, right? So it was that, and then, which is kind of like your 15 minutes a day of whatever practice it is. And then the last bit was, I can't even remember what the last bit was now. But anyway, it was, you know, oh yeah, and just take the first step. That was it. The Tao quote, the Lao Tzu, you know, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And then if you can put those three things together, you're there. And
I like that, thinking about what you just said there about finding what it is for you and the thing for you reminds me of what we spoke to Pavel Macek about, where he was talking about he's done 15 minutes of meditation every day for the last 2 years, and he sort of said it doesn't have to be that, it could be going out for a walk every day or doing something. It's having that commitment to that consistency, and whatever it is for you, time for you. It's funny you were saying there about the solicitors, that I think you said Ben works in HR for solicitors, didn't you? And I went to this dinner last night again that I go to once a month with Will Polston.
Is that only once a month? You seem to go every day.
No, it's once a month. It's funny because it's once a month. So it's just that time that it's because we always record on a Thursday. So when I do go once a month, the next day I'm always doing the podcast with you. But the reason I was going to say, I was chatting to a lady. I was sat next to a lady who's a solicitor, and we just got chatting, and she runs a solicitor. She's got 70 staff. She's in her mid 50s. She's married. She's got 3 kids. Her husband's also involved in the business as well, and she trains once a week at the moment, which is great. She sees a trainer 1 day a week. And she's trying, and she's trying to. Well, she's not really. I suggested she's done that consistently for a long time, and I suggested trying to make it do one more session. You know, in another time, a Tuesday. She does a Friday, maybe do a Tuesday as well. And we were talking about that, and what was really interesting is I talked about the podcast, because she said one of the things that she was talking about was that she's in her mid 50s. I think her mum is about 80. And her husband's mum is about in late 70s. They're both around the 80 mark, and they're both in quite poor health. And so I kind of said what we always talk about, like looking to the future and what's it look like in 20 years. And if you want to be, and she was saying, I really don't want to be in the same kind of health that their parents are in when they get to that age, which is kind of 25 years down the line. And so I kind of said, well, if you don't want to be in that position, then you really, we talked to, because I said, you know, at the gym, you know, we've got lots of people in their 50s, their 60s and their 70s. You really have to try and in your 50s get, you know, because if you can build your fitness up, like we always say, there will be an inevitable decline. But if you're declining from a higher place, it's going to take you to get longer to get there, and also you'll decline at a slower rate as well. So it was just it's everywhere when you start talking to people, isn't it? This fear, not fear of getting old, but this awareness of people living longer, and how, especially when you talk to people usually in their 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, their parents are at that kind of, as Peter Attia would call it, in the marginal decades of life, and it's just kind of how you're going to live out your last 10 to 20 years. And it's a genuine concern for people, and it should be a genuine concern for people, I think.
You see, it's funny. I didn't have imposter syndrome doing this talk, right? Because it was like, well, I've got proof, because we've got the walking group, and it's been growing and growing and growing. Now I get all the feedback from people, so we've got the proof that it works, right? No, it's not scientific proof and all that. It's just evidence that it's worked for the people who are there. So it's that kind of anecdotal. However, we are in an echo chamber, I think, because I think I still think everyone knows about this. Everyone knows this stuff, and they don't. And then you go and do a talk like this in front of a bunch of people who you wouldn't usually be talking to, and they're kind of like, that was, not that was amazing, but they're like, oh, I hadn't really thought about it like that before. And it's like, well, I think about it every day. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just getting that across. And the thing I was going to tell you, actually, I'll keep it very quick because it kind of fits. But there's a lady who comes along who's 63, I think. And I put a video about it yesterday. She so she had a horrible marriage. She was married for a long time. She's got 2 stepkids from it and 3 kids from the marriage as well, which are her kids. Her 3 kids are fine. The 2 stepkids have got like a bit some kind of like conditions. One of them's a kidney condition. So she thinks her ex-husband's probably got like a some sort of genetic thing or whatever, right? She hasn't. However, she's got stage 3 out of 5 kidney failure, right? It's 63. And she has had for a while, and she puts that down to the stress of the marriage that she had, because it was a horrible marriage, apparently. I don't know much about it, but that's what she tells me. And then last year, she started coming on the walks. She's lost 32 kilos in the last year. She also, she started going to the gym, and she's doing open water swimming. She's all of this stuff, because I was chatting to her about it, and I said, it's not just the walking, like, it's very nice to hear that, but it's not just that, And she said, no, but that's where it started. That's how I lost all the weight initially. I started walking, I cut out processed food, started drinking less, and I changed my lifestyle. But that was kind of like the catalyst. And she said, after that, I started running again in October, and she's doing the half marathon in March, so in a couple of weeks. But she said, I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't started the walking. So she's lost 32 kilos. She's in her 60s. So before that, so this time last year, every January, she goes to see the doctor, who then tells her, you're in stage 3. Next year, you're in stage 3. Not like, you're in stage 3 kidney failure. Here's what you need to do about it. Just, yeah, you're still in stage 3. And she's sitting there obese and all this, and they don't say anything. So she's, over the last year, she's completely overhauled everything, lost loads of weight. So at 63, she could have just been like, this is my life for the rest of time, but she didn't do that. And I think it was also time, because she'd been through a horrible divorce and all that, and it'd been a couple of years. She'd been through COVID and all that. So I think it was like, do you know what? Now's the time. Now, so she went in January. She told me the other week, and she's in stage 2. So it's reversed, right? It's going the other way. So she's in her 60s. It's in stage 2. She's lost a bunch of weight. And again, she said the doctor just went, you're in stage 2 now. And that was it. And it's like,
it didn't sort of say, how have you done that? What have you done?
How have you? So it was Ainsley, wasn't it? Remember when Ainsley came on, and it was like, what would be great there? And what I want to do with this is why the walking group goes like beyond what it actually is, just going out for a walk. It's way beyond that. Is what did you do about it? Tell us what you did about it, and then put a presentation together or something, and go and present it to a bunch of people who are sitting there whose kidneys are going to fail, and they're going to need like organ transplants and all this sort of stuff. Go and talk to them and tell them how you did it. You know what I mean? And it's interesting, because it was she basically did exactly what my thing said, which obviously I didn't make up, is pick something you're going to do it consistently. Don't worry about the goal, and just carry on and take that first step. And that all of that is exactly how it worked. So, and you've got many examples of that in unique results, right?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say you making me think there that we when we were skiing last week, there was there was two people on the trip who come with us regularly. Jeff, who's 77, who skis, and we were talking actually. We were saying because next year, obviously, when we go, we've already booked the week for next year. Will be the first week in February, and as we were saying, oh God, imagine when we go when you're like when it's the year that you're going to turn 80 and you'll be skiing, and Sean, who's 64, was with us as well, which is amazing, and so it's just so good just to have these older people still doing those kind of things, and talking to this lady last night at the dinner about her mum who was or sorry her mother-in-law, I think, who was in their late 70s, and can't really walk very well with a walking stick and whatnot, and a very, very ill health. And then you kind of think that this guy Jeff, 77, is coming up the mountains and is skiing and things. It's really it's but you have to, you're not, and this was what one of the things that this lady said to me, who I was talking to. She's in her mid 50s now, and she kind of said, I realized that the longer I leave it to kind of start getting serious about this and doing things that are good for me and exercising more, the harder it's going to get. If you don't start in your 30s, or every decade you leave it, it's going to get harder to start, isn't it? And harder to kind of start to turn the ship around, um and and I also said, because I think she sort of said to me that she put on quite a lot of weight around the time of menopause or something like that, but said, oh, I never used to have to worry about anything, like I was always, slim, fit, I could eat what I wanted. I didn't have to think about anything, And I sort of said, and we talk about this a lot on here, don't we, that most people take their health for granted, don't they? They just take their health for granted. They don't ever really think about it until, the shit starts to hit the fan or something goes on, either to them or to someone close to them. I mean, we've spoke about it before, that sometimes something bad can happen to you and you still don't ever change, you know what I mean? But it's often, I think so many people take it for granted, but it's so dangerous to leave it to your 50s or your 60s and then things start going wrong. And then if you're not used to doing any exercise or looking after yourself or making sensible decisions around food or just trying to have some healthy habits, to make a change then is so difficult. It's
That's the thing. There's lots of things there. It's never too late, but it's
mm,
always better to start early, isn't it?
yeah,
Plant the tree thing.
yeah,
It's and the thing is, you can do everything right. Steve Cotter, prime example. You can do everything right, and still die young, right?
mm.
Which is tragic. And you get people who do it. Keith Richards is the opposite, right? He's still Bill. I watched a Bill Hicks thing from the 90s, and he was doing a comedy routine about how old Keith Richards was.
Yeah. And that was 30
like
years
30
ago. And that
years
was
ago.
30 years ago. Yeah. Yeah.
So it is that thing. And then I think about the thing about like other people is, so my men on my dad's side of the family don't live very long, right? My dad died at 65. His brother died at 68, who was his older brother, was about a year and a half after my dad. He died. His even older brother, the eldest, died when he was 59, so in the 90s, I think.
Mm.
His mum died she had an enlarged heart, I think. So my older uncle died of a heart attack, but he drank loads of whiskey and he worked on the roofs with bitumen and he smoked
It's like you've
loads.
said before, I'm sure, on here, that like people say that, don't they? They like say, oh, well, people in my family die young. But then you think, well, what do they do? And if you've
Yeah.
got family who
So,
they drink a lot of alcohol or they smoke
yep.
and all this sort
My
of
dad,
stuff,
my dad smoked for like 40 odd years, started when he
Mm.
was 5 years old. My uncle Bill, who died when he was 68, worked on the roads and he used to work with asbestos. My dad worked in a chemical factory
Mm.
for a lot of years. And I remember when I was like, up until I was about 10 years old or something, he used to come in and throw up from like after when he got in from work. I'd hear him in the bathroom because we
Mm.
lived in a tiny house, so you couldn't get away from it. So I could sit there and go, my genetics say I'm going to die.
Mm.
So my auntie, who was my dad's sister, died last year. She was 89, I think. Um, and she didn't drink and smoke and didn't work herself into the ground and all of that sort of stuff. So genetically, we're fine by the sounds of it. It's the fact that they just had unhealthy lifestyles. And Dave Whitley talked about that, didn't he? About how everyone in his area has got like type 2 diabetes, but everything that happens, you bake a cake for them or you take round a pie or whatever. So
Mm.
it's not the area, it's not the genetics in the area, it's how much food they eat.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It really is. So let's touch on. We were talking about this. I mentioned it. I think since we started recording, but the Pavel Satsulin on Huberman that you've listened to the whole thing. It was 4 hours, 4 hours plus long, and I think I'm about an hour and a half from the end. But I really liked that. I thought that he came across really, really well in that. And I mean, just to sit and talk for 4 hours, the amount of and all of the kind of the references and the clinical trials and the research papers and all the names that he just recounts is quite incredible, isn't it? His mind when he sort of says, "Oh, there was this study done,"
Or
in
is he making them up because nobody knows who they are? That's a joke.
no, it's
It's like,
amazing.
yeah, I just took out a couple of Russian names and
Yeah,
like
you
no
can't.
one's
It's
gonna
not
know
even
who they
made
are.
me because Pavel Macek, he sent me when Pavel was saying about this name, you got to check this guy out, and I could never get the name because he's got that like
Yeah.
Czech kind of accent. And he messaged me, he emailed me and said, "Oh, here's the guy I was talking about." And it was a guy called Jiri something who's the MMA, the fighter guy. But then he was
Yeah.
talking about another guy as well. Um, and I can't and he messaged me, let me Pavel.
Was it just? Did he just message you a bunch of letters and you were like, "What is
No,
this an
no,
anagram? Or do I have to like decipher it?"
no, he messaged me and he said, "Oh, my friend Jiri Chadicic, yeah." And he sent me some videos, which is great. So I followed them and I said, "This is amazing. Thank you. Who was the other person you suggested I follow, please?" And he's come back. "Oh, I don't remember who was the who was the other person?" And I'm like, "Well, I can't remember. I've got no idea what the name was." So I'm just trying to think I'll have to go back to him and see. But yeah,
You can send him when the episode's ready. He'll listen. You can listen to it and yeah,
yeah, and
or
then
I'll
I'll
clip
go
it
back.
out and send it to
Yeah,
him or
and then I'll
whatever.
go back to him and ask him. But yeah, because he kept saying, didn't he, like, the study in 1940s Germany by blah 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 blah, and then said this, and then the Americans in the 80s. It's incredible, really, the amount of. So I thought he was really really good. I thought it was a great
I
podcast.
thought it was interesting because when I saw it, I was like, I used to listen to Huberman in the beginning, and then it's kind of gone the way of. I mean, it's all like sponsorship and this and that and stuff like that.
Mm,
So it's like I dip in and out. I've got nothing against him, you know what I mean? I don't know the man,
mm,
but I dip in and out of those depending on who's on.
mm.
But this one I was like, oh, I'll give it a listen because like I don't know, Pavel's just like he's easy to listen to. It's really
Mm.
weird. He explains like difficult concepts, but I don't know. He's just really easy. It's just easy to listen. Even if you've got no idea what he's talking about and you don't understand him, you can just listen to it, like, in the background or
Yeah,
whatever. So,
yeah.
but it was really good because I think I sent you that message. I said, it's nothing that you haven't really heard before because we've done a lot of this over the years,
Mm,
specifically from him. I don't mean like we know
yeah.
everything. I mean, as in,
Mm,
we've read a lot of his books and we've learned a lot from him.
mm.
Um, Personally at the
Strong endurance.
endurance
Yeah,
thing as well.
yeah.
So not that we know him personally, obviously, but we were there.
Mm.
But it's like it's lots of stuff you've heard before. But if someone asked you to explain it, you'd be like, oh, you'd struggle. But when he says it, you're like, oh yeah, that's what I would have meant.
Yeah.
you know?
Because I shared that thing on Instagram yesterday, which I'll just read it because it was quite good. And this is, I think, one of the concepts, one of the things that I sort of said, which is kind of explains what you're saying as well, is it's putting things in a way that most people can understand. So, and we'll touch upon this about because obviously Paul McElroy we had on at the start of the year as well for his double episode. But it's train with weights that are heavy enough to demand respect, but light enough not to fear, and that the kind of the mathematics behind that, I suppose. He said the majority of your training should be done with weights that are probably between about 75 and 85% of your 1 rep max, and I really like that, because I think most people can kind of get that concept of you need to have a weight that's heavy enough to demand respect and to make you a little bit wary of it, to know that you've got to do it properly, and you've got
Yeah.
to be switched on emotionally and physically and everything to do it, um, but light enough not to fear, in terms of you can do it. So it's not kind of like a weight that's going to crush you, or that you're going to, if you were squatting, you're not going to go down and not be able to come back up again. So it's kind of, I thought that was really nice. And then we mentioned, didn't we, because obviously with Paul McElroy's perpetual strength, it kind of mirrors a lot of what Pavel talks about. You're not going to failure. You're not training to failure. You're always leaving either reps in reserve, or he talked a lot about doing, say you've got a weight that you can lift 10 times, just doing lots of sets of 5 with it, so you're never really reaching fatigue. You're not, your technique is always good. You're always fresh. And you can do a lot more volume with that load, rather than pushing yourself to failure, which was a massive part, obviously, of what Paul was talking about, wasn't it, as well, for perpetual
Yeah.
strength. So yeah, no, I thought it was good.
I think, like I say, I think the difference, because Paul says, he's learned from Pavel, and
Hmm.
he says he hasn't invented like much anything really. He's just kind of taken it the step further for how not even how he understands it, how he's done it for himself.
Hmm.
And it's funny because I tend to agree with Paul more than Pavel. And I think the only difference that I can see in their approach is Paul does more volume, and
Hmm.
Pavel's more about less volume with a slightly heavier weight. Paul uses a
Hmm.
lighter weight but does more volume. And for
Hmm.
me, Paul's approach, because I've done the strong first approach for a number of years, and
Because
I mean,
you also did Plan Strong, didn't you? Because I know
I
that
did, yeah.
you did
And for
me a deadlift program before, I think, from Plan
Yeah,
Strong.
for me,
Yeah.
for me, it was always just a bit. It felt too heavy, and maybe I wasn't ready for it. I don't know. It obviously works. It wasn't for me for whatever reason. But Paul's approach has worked really well for me so far. So I'm like, well, for me, that's the way to
Mm.
go. Build the base wider, and then you don't even need to know where the peak is. But Pavel says the same thing. He said, like, the demonstration of strength is for the platform. You don't need to demonstrate anything in the gym. You just keep doing the program. And the thing about pick 3 or 4 exercises and do them for a very, very, very long time
Mm.
is great, because lots of people think, well, RSI and all of this, and it's like, yeah, but you still do other stuff. I go walk. I did a 15-mile walk yesterday, right?
Mm.
That's not fatiguing for me. I'll still do a bunch of pressing tomorrow. I did a bunch of pressing yesterday before I went, and pull-ups and pistols.
Mm.
Um, Going for a walk is, some people will do that as their exercise. For me, it's just like I just enjoy it.
Mm.
So that's the thing. It's not like do 4 exercises and nothing. You can still do stretching and the odd like body weight exercises or whatever, like the um,
Hindu
Hindu
press ups,
squats,
Hindu
Hindu
squats. Yeah.
squats and
Yeah.
push-ups that Pavel was talking about.
Mm.
They're really good just for your mobility and for a different kind of feeling and what have you. So all of those sorts of things that are really low level, you can do as much as you like because you don't get fatigued from them, and your central nervous system is perfectly fine. And
Mm.
then the other stuff that you're going to do slightly heavier in one of those programs, 3 or 4 things, and just do it for a very, very long time. And
Mm.
I've done that with a lot of things over the years. I very rarely say do a program and then after like 3 or 4 months go, right, what am I going to do next? I kind of do it for for a few
Yeah.
years and see how it feels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was good as well, I thought, because when Pavel kind of said as well, he said, I don't think he used this term, but there's kind of more than one way to skin a cat. There's lots of ways that you can get results, and he kind of said that some ways will work better for some people and other ways will work better for other people, which is
Exactly.
kind of what you're saying. And I kind of I found him far less dogmatic than, because you get some people who, I suppose it's like religion really in a way, isn't it? I don't want to get too into things, but you get people who are followers of a religion who are really like dogmatic and really fanatical about it. But if you actually went to the source material or the actual source of the person who started it, you might find that they're far more, pliable and far more agreeable and far less, black and white than the people who follow the doctrine, if you like, And I found that he was really kind of very, um, yeah, very agreeable, but also very flexible and very common sense about his approach. Much like when you talk to Paul McElroy, he was very much like, well, yeah, this is the way that we do it, and but it doesn't, some people get better results this way, and some people get better results this way. But then you get some people who hear something he says and they take it as like the word of God and get
Yeah.
very fanatical about it. So
Well,
I kind of
it,
liked his approach of just that he was very common sense, very, you know, yeah, flexible, very, kind of the opposite of kind of often how he's presented or portrayed.
yeah, but that's like you say. I think that's because of people, because of other. He's portrayed like that because of other people. I don't know who, but
Yeah.
plenty of people. But it's interpretive, isn't it? But you said that about Brett Jones at one of the things you were at, and the way you were doing some presses.
Mm,
And he said that's great, and he said there's nothing wrong with him and all that. That's just not how we teach it,
mm,
which is fine because it's not. That's not how their system
mm.
portrays it. But it doesn't say do this over everything else. It's like in this situation, this is how we do it. But and then outside of this situation, you can do it however you like because everything's
Yeah.
valid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's very, very interesting. The other thing I was going to touch on was what I kind of obviously being away for a week, sort of snowboarding was um, kind of something I discovered myself or I found in myself. Just obviously I only go like 1 week a year. So it's kind of like you've got 52 weeks in a year, haven't you? And 51, you're not snowboarding, and one you are. So you go away and you're kind of doing it. And one thing, and I've really found that going this time, and this was just something that I kind of thought that I'm going to share with my guys at the gym, really, is I think that in I'm heavier this year than I have been previously going, probably by about 6 kilos, something like that. So maybe from like the low 80s, maybe like 82, 83 kilos. Now I'm more like 88, 89 kilos. And I found that because of all the strength training and the strongman stuff I've been doing, my legs felt really, really strong. So my legs didn't get tired at all and we were doing long days snowboarding from like 8:45 in the morning, sometimes till like 3:30 in the afternoon, and not stopping for lunch, maybe just stopping for a couple of coffees in the day, and just going right through. So my legs felt really strong. My cardio felt really strong. I didn't feel like I was breathing, but just actually getting about, or the hardest thing actually, if people don't understand, if people don't know, but when you snowboard, I know you've snowboarded before, Pete, you unless you're Mr. Paul Captain Field, who's a friend of the show, who's now got these fancy snowboarding bindings that you just step into. So you stand up and you just
Of
step
course
in.
he has.
Yeah. But we were if you're snowboarding, you've got to basically sit on your bum, strap your feet into the snowboard so you're strapped in, and then get your bum as close to your heels as you can, and then kind of use a hand to get up, and if you're on a hill, a slope, a mountain, whatever, but a downward slope, it's quite easy because your board and your feet are below you, so you can kind of just get up and gravity helps you up. But if you're getting up on a fairly flat surface, it's quite difficult, and just being that much heavier and a bit, and I'll be honest, a bit fatter, around the, all my legs are bigger, my guts a little bit bigger, just more mass of body to get up. I found that really, really awkward, really difficult. And really, first couple of days, I was like, bloody, this is hard work, it's a lot harder than it was last year.
Yeah.
But when I'm up on my feet and I'm snowboarding, I'm fine. So one of the things I kind of thought was that next time when I go snowboarding, I'm definitely going to make sure I'm, 4 or 5 kilos lighter than I was this year, because and it just made me think that strength and fitness, and we know it's specific, we know it's really specific, because I've got a few strongman comps I'm signed up for this year, so I want to be in that instance, or for that it helps to be a bit heavier and a bit bigger and a bit more solid, because it just does, mass moves mass and all the rest of it. But actually for general life and for everything else, I don't think extra weight does you any good, which sounds like it's a bit obvious, but it just made me think, and then it also made me reflect on people who I know who are, quite a lot bigger and heavier, who are maybe 100 kilos plus, 110, 120 kilos plus. And you kind of think, well, God, actually, life must be quite a lot harder for the bigger you get, and it kind of really made me kind of reflect on that as well. But I suppose, like anything, you get used to your what's it called, like this homeostasis, isn't it? You get, if you're a certain way for a long time, you probably adapt to it and get, I don't know, you look like you're thinking, you're going to say, I don't know. It's just a question. I was just thinking,
No,
it was something I was thinking
it's
about.
well, homeostasis is the thing, isn't it? You get to where you are, and then your body's happy with it, and it stays there. I've been the same for years.
Becomes your new normal kind of thing.
But
Yeah.
but we've said, this goes with what you've said, but we've both said it before, but you said it most recently, I think, of people can be bigger, fat, say, right? Not bigger as in bulkier, just people can be obese and they don't know what feeling good feels like. So feeling good for them is the norm of what they're at,
Mm,
which if me and you went to that now, would probably feel like shit. But they
mm.
don't know that. They're just like, no, this is how it feels every day. So it's normal. So therefore I feel good. And it's like there's a scale, isn't there? So, it's that
That's
sort of thing.
interesting because I've just reflected just from what you just said. I just thought the first 2 days, I really thought, God, this is feeling hard. This is hard or harder than it used to feel. But by the end of the week, I hadn't got any stronger, obviously. I think I just got used to it. I
Yeah.
got used to it feeling harder. And
You
then
adapt very quickly. You'll be like,
yeah, yeah.
say like you say, you're getting up on a snowboard, you just put one hand down and flip yourself up, and then you're away or whatever, and
Mm,
get your bum as close to your heels. And if
mm,
that's harder, you'll have to start to roll over on your elbow, maybe, and then
mm,
but
mm.
by the end of the week, you'll be like, well, yeah, that's how I've always done it. And it's like, no, it isn't.
Yeah,
But
but I think that's what it
yeah,
was. I think by the end of the week, I just probably got used to the way it felt. And that's interesting. And then there was someone at the gym today who said, "Oh, you should get some of those step-in bindings then." And I thought, and Paul had said as well, "Oh, you want to get these step-in bindings because then you don't have to get on the floor and it's a lot easier. You don't." But then I thought, actually, I quite like the fact that I've got to sit on the floor and it's awkward because if you don't ever get on the floor, you don't. If you
but
do have to do, it's like we always talk about, isn't it? So it's kind of, do you get the step in bindings to make life easier, or do you just, like I say, lose the 5 kilos next time and just keep doing it? Because if you can keep doing that in your 50s and 60s, that's better for you, isn't it?
but there's no right answer to that either.
No, no.
Because yes, it does make it easier, and like everyone knows, if you've ever been snowboarding, it would just be easier to step in. Because the people who do it on the flat, there's people who don't even sit on the floor, do they? They just step on and
Yeah,
ratchet them up and stuff like that because
yeah,
they've done it for years.
yeah,
Um, so it's like it's whatever you're used to. But yeah, I mean, with that, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's kind of masking what you wouldn't have noticed that, would you, if you had
yeah,
the step in one? So
yeah.
it's one of those things. It's funny because this is making me think of this, and I think it is related, but the team who do the merch. So I'm wearing one of the caps right now. They're
Yeah.
in. I've told you about them. They're in London. 5 of them came over for the walk last weekend.
Oh, was it? Yes, you told me they were going to, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and they're
yeah.
all. I think the boss is like 30, and the rest of them are all like 24, 25, right? But they all came across on a Saturday. I'll give them a shout out. It's mercher.com. They're really good. And this is proper customer service. They came over. I'm not getting paid for this, by the way. I'm just saying it because I think they're really good. They came over, 5 of them on a Saturday, where like they got here from London at like, we started the walk at 9 o'clock. So they got up at 5:30. We went out for some food afterwards, and then they left at like, I don't know, 2, 2:30, something like that, to go back to London. So they've taken up their entire day, on their day off, which was amazing. You don't get customer service like that anymore, do you?
Mm.
But it was funny because they're all quite young. And we did the walk 4-ish miles or whatever, and then we went for some food afterwards. And then when we stood up after the food, there were like a couple of them like, "Oh, my legs feel like jelly." And I was like, "We've only done a couple of miles, and you're half my age." You know what I mean? So it's the things that you get used to, right? Because, like, no
Yeah.
doubt, I don't know what they do for exercise and what have you, but they're in London, so I'm
Mm.
assuming that it's the tube everywhere and all of this sort of stuff.
Or
So
even if it's walking though, it's walking on a flat
on
pavement,
flat,
isn't
yeah.
it?
So
So doing, yeah, like I say, and we're obviously coming to you in June, but like I say, usually, I mean, I feel like I'm fairly fit, I'm fairly strong, I'm fairly healthy. But when we go on the walking weekend, one weekend a year, and I'm walking, cross country for, a day, I find it hard. I find it hard. And not like hard in terms of I'm getting out of breath, but just maybe I'm not used to wearing walking boots for that a long time, and you get rubs and you get like little aches and pains and niggles because you're walking, you're doing something different, that
Yeah.
you're not used to doing. Whereas you're walking, all day every day for miles and miles and miles. So, but if you were to get on a bike and cycle for 2 or 3 hours, you'd probably feel uncomfortable, because you're not used to
Yeah.
sitting on a bike. You know what I mean? You get a sore
Yeah.
bum.
Sod that.
Yeah.
I did a new route yesterday, actually.
Okay.
And it's great because there's a village down by us called Monkton Farley, which I've been to before, but I've never walked over to there before. So, like I say, we went out and did a 15-miler yesterday, and I went up to a place which is going to be close by to where you're staying.
Hmm.
I went up there yesterday, and then you can go off. It's this place called Brown's Folly, and you can go off behind it, which I've never done before. So I went that way, and somebody had told me about this. There's a World War II. We've got a few things like that. There's a place called Charmy Down as well, which is an old World War II landing strip. And there's still some bunkers there and stuff. But Monkton Farley, you can look it up, Monkton Farley bunker or whatever, just something like that. It's I think it was the biggest ammunition silo in Europe, right? But it's all underground. It's like an underground city. So obviously, if any planes flew over, all they'd see is countryside, so they wouldn't even know it was there. So I was over by there yesterday, and I'm going to go back again next week and have a look because I think there's still some like some of the buildings just look like farm buildings, but they're the buildings to the entrance where you look down and there's like train tracks and stuff. Or there's a track where they used to wheel the munitions out and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it was the biggest one in Europe during the war. So I'm going to go back over there. So I might take you guys up that way because it's an easy route from where you're staying. So that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that would be great. No, that's going to be because that's only a few months away now, so that'll be fantastic. And you will just touch on right before we wrap up. You went to the Britain's Strongest Man in
Yes.
Sheffield, wasn't it?
Yes, and it was
That
amazing.
you and Sean and also another couple, two more family members, wasn't it? When?
No, Sean's sister, Emma.
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
loved it. You had a great time.
Yeah. She came over from Guernsey, especially, and we went up there. It was fantastic.
Because
So good.
when we were in France, I don't know, I think you saw it, didn't I? I was watching it on the live stream on the
Yeah.
TV in the chalet. So because I subscribed to the official Strongman, we had it, and no one. I said, "Oh, we've got Britain's Strongest Man on tonight," so we had it on in the chalet, and
Yeah.
a few of the guys who were with us don't have a clue about Strongman, never watch it, but really got into it, really kind of like watched it, and
Oh, it
really
was
loved it.
it was fascinating, right? So on the way there, I saw Donna Moore on the tram. She got on the tram with I'm assuming her husband or boyfriend or
Yeah.
whoever. And I just went to Sean and went, "There's Donna Moore." But
Mm.
I don't know. Like, we've had her on the podcast, but we don't know her, right? We've never met her before.
Yeah,
only
but I would have
only
gone and
online.
talked to her. You could have
Yeah,
said,
but you would have done.
no.
But I was like, but so I saw her anyway, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, I recognize her. And then what was I going to say? But that Matt Diamond was obviously competing as well, and we've met him at the Disabled Strongman events.
Yeah.
And he did really well, actually. He struggled with the stones towards the end. Did you see him compete?
Yeah.
Because he couldn't get, like, he was too short to get the
I
stones.
think he only got like the first or second one up, didn't he, or something like that?
Yeah, because he really struggled to get it that high. He picked it up and he got it to his chest, but then he had to kind of press it to put it on.
Yeah.
So I think that was his big struggle, but he did really well. I think he came. I think he came, like, how many? He came 9th or 10th or something like that. But I think, like, the field was really good, wasn't it? I mean, we
Yeah.
saw.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. But that first event, the 150 kilo sandbag carry, wiped everyone out, I think.
Well, Paddy Haynes though stormed it and won it, didn't he?
Oh, he loved it. He did really well. And a lot of them did well, but then Gavin Bilton passed out on the last deadlift.
Yeah.
Well, he put it down and then knelt on one knee, and he just went boosh like that.
Yeah.
A lot like Adam Bishop got injured. Someone else, I can't remember who else it was, got injured. Gavin nearly passed out again at the end on the stones.
Yeah.
So I think he was just having a bad time. Chris Beetham didn't have a good competition, but then, and obviously Luke Stoltman won it. But Flowers,
Yeah,
Shane
Shane
Flowers,
Flowers came second,
Andy
didn't he?
Flynn, and then Paddy, and who was it?
Ben Glasscock came
Glasscock. I
fifth.
was going to
Came
say
fifth. Yeah,
Glasscock.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, they like it's kind of they're all like kind of new to it, aren't they? It was
Mm.
great to see that coming through because I said about Paddy Haynes last year when we were there, he was like the little fella. He came 10th, and he was this
Yeah,
little fella who was brand new to it. And then this year he turned up twice the size, and it was just he was fourth by half a point. So it was so
yeah,
good to watch. It was amazing. But
yeah.
it was interesting to see how they did the events though, because that first event you could see everyone was so knackered after it.
Mm.
Um, and it's just interesting because like last year when we went, the first event was the deadlift, and they
Yeah.
didn't do this was a deadlift ladder, and they went up to 380 kilos,
Mm.
and Adam Bishop just
Did really well with the deadlift.
he just trounces that. He always that's his event. But then he got injured after that. But the year before they did as many reps as they could with 400 kilos, and then went down to 360, I think it was.
Yeah.
So him and Tom Stoltman last year did like 5 reps each,
Yeah.
which is with 400 kilos, which is just ridiculous.
No, it's bad.
But that didn't take everything out of everyone. And there was a throw-in event, which there wasn't this year, which Shane Flowers won because that's his thing, isn't it?
Mm.
So it kind of seemed like it was less intense last year. And then the intensity this year in that first event, like, you know, people who finished it were like, "Wait, we're done." A couple of other people looked like they were going to. And in fact, one guy, somebody passed out on it as well, and I can't remember who it was. It was Glasscock. It was another guy who'd been injured, and I can't remember his name. But he actually passed out with the bag. He just fell over with it.
Yeah.
He fell on top of it. So it was interesting to watch. And then like after that, I think everyone was just ruined. So to get through it all and get the stones at the end was amazing. So yeah, kind of changing of the guard in British strongman. It's fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I happened to I actually WhatsApped Shane Flowers afterwards because I've got his thing, and I said,
you're big mates with him, yeah.
Congratulations, mate. Just watched Britain's live from France. Incredible performance. And then he come back to me late that evening, which is amazing. You know, but that was from Iceland. You know, I've obviously met Iceland, didn't I?
But he was getting over a bicep tear or something, wasn't he?
He just got over like and he was. I think Iceland was his first show back. From that, you know, and then obviously to I think I'm pretty sure he podiumed in Iceland. I can't remember where he came, but then obviously to come in at the Britons and do that was great. And then
his shoulders as well are massive. His shoulders are just huge. It's bonkers.
Because you know he was wearing this giant slide vest. Yeah, that's what made his shoulder. And I've got that vest, and I said to Steph, I said, I don't look like that when you put it on. He's like an absolute monster, isn't he? You know. But
massive.
Yeah, but no. Anyway, so based on, we'll start to wrap up now and obviously what we were just talking about, we've got an announcement. Obviously, Paddy Haynes, who is a great guy. I mean, I think Paddy Haynes is only about 27 or.
He's 28, I think. Yeah,
because
it was funny because Mark Felix was there as well, not competing this time. He was competing last year, but not this year.
He's twice as old as.
He's a full 30 years older than. He's 59 this year. Yeah, he's a full 30 years older. So last year he was competing against Paddy Haynes.
Yeah.
And he's a full 30 years old. It's just ridiculous.
Well, and recently, I think it was in Birmingham or something, they went head to head on that grip event. Do you know they picked up 2 Thomas Inch dumbbells? You know, the really.
Oh, was that Paddy Haynes? Was it?
Yeah, that was Paddy versus Mark Felix, and that to pick up they're like they're heavy really heavy dumbbells, but the grip on them is like a can of Coke or something. You know what I mean? It's like a thick grip. And you had to pick them both up and then farmers walk with them as far as you can. And Mark Felix, I think you got a world record or something, you know, and he certainly did. But yeah, so Paddy is going to be on the podcast next week, so which is absolutely fantastic because he's like I say, he's 28 years old. I think we've just said he's got like that tash, hasn't he? He's got like he looks really kind of unique kind of character. But yeah, it's going to be brilliant. So Paddy Haynes. Is going to be on with us next week. He is really, I mean, he's a kind of an expert, or you know, really the grip strength is his thing, and obviously moving kind of events. He's very athletic. He's very good at that, and hopefully, like I say, fingers crossed, he might be at the World's Strongest Man this year as well. So
Yeah, he was fourth. He was fourth by half a point.
yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, so there's every opportunity for him maybe to go along this year, either as a reserve or maybe even go along as and get a place this year. So yeah, Paddy will be on with us next week for episode 237. And then just a couple of quick reminders of workshops that we've got coming up with guests from the show recently at Unique Results in Chelmsford, in Essex, in England. So on the 23rd of May, we've got Pavel Macek, who was on with us the last couple of weeks, doing his Enter the Dumbbell workshop. And I've just that is also the day before the Strong First SFB, the bodyweight certification, the Saturday and the Sunday. You can sign up for that if you go onto the Health Oddity Instagram and just go into the bio, click on the link there. It's got all the workshops there. And I've just organised with Chloe Brennan, who was on a couple of weeks back, to come to Unique Results and do a 1 day kind of. She's going to do the morning's going to be Olympic lifting with a barbell, and then the afternoon is transferring those Olympic lifting skills over to strongman implements like the log, like the axle, like the dumbbell, that kind of thing. So that'll be a really, really great day with Chloe Brennan on the 31st of August. But yeah, I think that's it for this week, Pete. That was nice. It's nice, like I say, but haven't caught up since Christmas. So
No.
yeah, that's yeah.
Because people think like oh yeah, you two talk to each other all the time. It's like we don't. We talk on here, but we're talking to somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we rarely, like we say, the last time we spoke was like this was back in December. So
Yeah.
yeah, we had 9 weeks in a row with guests. So no, fantastic. So thank you so much, guys, for watching or listening. If you are watching or listening on a platform that allows you to leave a review, please do, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts. That's where we're trying to get more reviews and so we can read them out. Thank you again. Like I say, we're in March now. In fact, we're probably about 4.5 years into doing this now, aren't we? So 5 year August, I think it was, we started.
Just over.
Yeah. So August will be 5 years. We'll have to work out when our fifth. Well, what's 5 times 52? 260, isn't it? You're the maths man.
Yes.
Is it 260? Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll make a note of that. So yeah, so this was episode 236. Next week with Paddy Haynes will be 237. And yeah, episode 260 will be our 5th birthday. So that'll be fantastic. Really, really good. Cool. Okay, thank you everybody. We will see you next week. If you do not subscribe already to us on YouTube, please do that. Please give us a follow on Facebook. Please give us a follow on Instagram. And we will see you next week for episode 237 with Mr. Paddy Haynes. Until then, bye-bye.